The airlock hissed open and Captain Elena Rivas stumbled through, her pressure suit torn at the shoulder, blood freezing in crystalline patterns along her arm. The Exathrin warship had found her escape pod drifting in the debris field of the Terran Valor, her destroyer obliterated 3 hours ago in an ambush that killed 217 souls. Now she stood in a corridor that pulsed with bioluminescent veins, surrounded by insected warriors whose chitinous armor reflected her terrified face in fractured angles.
Human female. Combat rank. Unattached.
The translator implant in her skull rendered the clicking mandibles into cold assessment.
You will be processed.
Elena's hand moved toward her sidearm before she remembered it was gone, lost when the pod's interior had explosively decompressed.
I'm a prisoner of war. Geneva Convention protocols. Your species references treaties we never signed.
The warrior's compound eyes reflected no emotion.
You are spoils. You will be assigned.
They dragged her through passages that smelled of ammonia and something sweetly organic, past chambers where other prisoners hung suspended in translucent cocoons. She recognized a merchant captain from New Shanghai, a mining engineer from Europa. All humans. All alive. All terrifyingly still. The processing chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows where something massive moved. A Exathrin in elaborate carapace markings approached, flanked by smaller attendants, who carried devices that hummed against Elena's bones.
Strip the suit,
the decorated one commanded.
We must assess compatibility. Like hell.
Elena backed against the wall, her training screaming at her to comply, to survive, but her fury burning hotter.
I'm not your lab experiment.
The attendants didn't move. The decorated Exathrin tilted its head in what might have been amusement.
You misunderstand your situation, human. You are not being studied. You are being matched. Your species' recent territorial expansion has created diplomatic complications. The Queen has decreed a solution.
The devices swept over Elena's body despite her struggles, projecting data streams she couldn't read. Her vital signs. Genetic markers. Something labeled as
Pheromone Compatibility Index.
That made her stomach turn.
This one shows acceptable parameters.
An attendant reported.
Stress hormones elevated but within viable range. Aggression markers high. Suitable for warrior caste pairing. What the fuck does that mean?
Elena's voice cracked.
What are you doing to me?
The decorated Exathrin moved closer, and Elena saw now the intricate patterns weren't decoration, but scarring, ritual marks of status.
18 cycles ago, your species encountered our scout fleet near the Orc Cloud. You attacked first. Destroyed 3 vessels before retreating. Since then, 7 border conflicts. 43 Exathrin casualties. 209 human deaths. This is unsustainable. So you're going to execute prisoners? That's your solution? No.
The word hung in the recycled air.
The Queen has studied your species extensively. Your bonding rituals. Your concept of marriage. We will create bonds between our peoples. Starting with war prisoners. You will be assigned an Exathrin mate. The relationship will be monitored, documented, and, if successful, replicated. Peace through enforced intimacy.
Elena's laugh was hysterical.
You're insane. You can't just force people to. We can. We have 317 human prisoners currently in processing.
You are the 78th to reach assignment stage.
The Exathrin turned toward the shadows above.
Your match has been selected. Warrior Prime Kothix of the 3rd Talon Fleet. He awaits in the bonding chamber.
No. Elena's voice was steel now, terror crystallizing into something harder.
I refuse. Kill me first.
The decorated Exathrin made a sound like grinding stones that the translator rendered as laughter.
refusal is not viable. The Queen herself approved this pairing. Kothix distinguished himself in the battle that destroyed your vessel. He claimed you specifically when your lifepod signature was detected. This is a great honor.
The floor dropped away beneath Elena's feet. Not literally, but the implication struck her like a physical blow.
He claimed me? What does that mean?
It means, a new voice rumbled from the shadows, deeper than the others,
that I pulled your pod from the wreckage before it collided with the stellar debris. It means I overrode my squadron's kill order. It means I have chosen you, human, and the Queen has granted her blessing.
The figure that descended from the darkness was massive, easily 8 feet tall, its carapace darker than the others with silver tracings that suggested both age and violence. Its mandibles were scarred, one antenna shorter than the other. But its eyes, compound and multifaceted, caught the chamber's light and held something that made Elena's breath stop. Not hunger, not cruelty, curiosity.
I am Kothix,
it said, and the translator caught something in the original clicking that suggested formality, perhaps even nervousness.
I have studied your species' customs. I know this is not how your bonding rituals proceed. But I have chosen you, and you live because of that choice. I would know the one I saved.
Elena stared at this alien warrior who had destroyed her ship, killed her crew, and then pulled her from death's grip. Her mind raced through options, finding none that didn't end in cocoon suspension or worse. But something in the way Kothix held himself, mandibles slightly parted in what her cultural training suggested might be a non-threatening posture, made her pause. Why?
The question emerged hoarse.
Why me specifically?
Kothix's antennae twitched.
You fought. Even as your vessel broke apart, your weapon's signature continued firing until the final moment. Such determination. Such refusal to surrender. These are traits the Exathrin value above all others. And when I saw your pod, so small and fragile, still broadcasting defiant signals though your life support was failing.
His mandibles clicked in a pattern the translator couldn't parse.
I found myself unwilling to let that fire extinguish.
The decorated Exathrin gestured toward a doorway that had opened in the wall.
The bonding chamber awaits. You will enter. You will begin the courtship protocols. And you will discover whether this mad experiment of the Queen's has any merit, or whether it will end, as many expect, in failure and renewed war.
Elena looked at Kothix, at the alien who held her life in clawed appendages, who had somehow convinced his queen that forcing interspecies relationships was a path to peace. It was insane. It was horrifying. It was completely outside any scenario her military training had prepared her for. But she was alive. And somewhere in the labyrinth of this warship, 316 other humans were facing similar impossibilities. She took a step toward the doorway. Then another. Kothix moved beside her, maintaining careful distance, and together they walked into a future neither species had imagined. The bonding chamber smelled different from the processing area. Less antiseptic, more organic, with undertones of minerals and something almost like cinnamon. The walls rippled with patterns that suggested either video displays or living tissue. Elena couldn't tell which. In the center sat 2 platforms at different heights, adapted for different physiologies, surrounding a circular depression filled with what looked like water, but shimmered wrong.
Pheromone pool,
Kothix explained, noticing her stare.
Exathrin courtship requires chemical compatibility testing. Your scientists provided us with modified compounds that should not harm human biology. The Queen's xenobiologists have been thorough. How considerate.
Elena's sarcasm was a shield, thin but necessary.
So what now?
We hold hands and pretend this isn't completely fucked up?
Kothix settled onto the larger platform with surprising grace for something so heavily armored.
Now we talk. Your species is not unique in finding this arrangement difficult. The Exathrin do not traditionally bond outside our hive structures. What the Queen asks of us is equally alien to my nature.
That stopped Elena's pacing. She looked at him properly for the first time, reading the tension in his posture, the way his antennae kept flattening against his skull.
You didn't volunteer for this either. I claimed you. I did not claim to understand why.
Kothix's mandibles moved in what might have been a sigh.
The Queen believes genetic and cultural mixing will prevent future conflicts. She points to old Earth history, to human nations that ended centuries of war through strategic marriages. She sees our species as young feudal kingdoms that need such bonds to survive contact with each other. That's a hell of a lot of pressure on forced relationships.
Elena sat on the smaller platform, exhaustion finally crashing through her adrenaline. And, historically, those political marriages were pretty fucking miserable for the people in them. Yes.
Kothix leaned forward slightly.
The Queen acknowledges this. She has decreed that pairs who prove fundamentally incompatible will be reassigned without prejudice. But she requires we make genuine attempt. 90 rotations of shared quarters, daily interaction protocols, cultural exchange sessions. 90 days of playing house with the alien who blew up my ship. I did not pilot the vessel that struck yours. That was 2nd Talon Fleet, Destroyer Group Shirix. I commanded defense pickets.
Kothix's voice held something that might have been regret.
But I was present. I participated in the battle. Your anger is justified.
Elena studied the scarring on his carapace, the way damage patterns suggested he'd taken fire from multiple directions.
You've been fighting a long time. 17 cycles since my hatching. This war has consumed most of my sentient existence.
His antennae twitched toward her.
How long have you fought? 6 years in the Outer Colonies Defense Force. 3 as captain.
She touched the frozen blood on her shoulder, wincing.
Thought I'd make admiral someday. Now I'm interspecies diplomatic experiment number 78. 77. We count from 0.
The clicking pattern that followed might have been humor.
May I address your wound? Exathrin medical compounds are compatible with human tissue. Quite effective, actually.
Elena's instinct screamed danger, but the throbbing in her shoulder was getting worse. She nodded slowly. Kothix rose and moved to a wall panel, removing a container of pale blue gel. He approached carefully, telegraphing every movement.
This will sting initially then, Nom. Do I have your permission?
The question surprised her. Everything about this situation was non-consensual, yet he asked.
Go ahead.
His touch was delicate despite the claws, spreading the gel with precision that spoke of extensive medical training. The sting was sharp but brief, followed by cool relief. Elena watched his face, if it could be called that, noting the concentration in his movements.
You've done this before. Treated wounded. Warrior Primes are required to maintain combat medic certification. I have stabilized many injuries.
He sealed the container.
Though never on a human.
Your skin is surprisingly resilient yet disturbingly thin. How do you survive without proper carapace? Redundant organ systems and spike mostly.
The joke fell flat, but Kothix's antennae quirked in what her xenopsychology briefing suggested might be appreciation of humor.
Our intelligence suggests humans are remarkably difficult to kill completely. Several Exathrin commanders have expressed frustration at your species' tendency to continue fighting from wounds that should be immediately fatal. We're stubborn that way.
Elena flexed her shoulder, testing the repair.
This is good work. Thank you.
Kothix returned to his platform, and, for a long moment, they sat in silence. The pheromone pool between them continued its strange shimmer, releasing scents that tugged at Elena's hindbrain in ways she didn't fully understand. Not unpleasant, exactly. Just profoundly other.
What happens if we fail? She finally asked. If after 90 days we can't stand each other? Then you will be reassigned to another warrior, and I to another human. The Queen is patient but determined. She believes statistical probability ensures some pairings will succeed.
Kothix's voice lowered. But there is another option.
Elena tensed.
What option? If we succeed, if we can demonstrate genuine compatible bonding, we are granted elevated status. You would receive full citizenship in the Exathrin Collective, not prisoner status. I would be promoted to the Queen's Diplomatic Corps. Together, we would help facilitate the remaining assignments. And if we really succeed, form an actual relationship?
The question felt dangerous, acknowledging possibility. Kothix's stillness was absolute.
Then we would be the first. The proof the Queen needs to propose formal alliance between our species. The war would end not in conquest but merger.
The weight of that settled over Elena like her captain's bars never had. 217 souls from the Terran Valor were counting on her to be their voice, their revenge, their memory. But 317 human prisoners were counting on something else entirely, survival through impossible adaptation.
That's too much, she whispered. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a symbol.
I'm just a ship captain who lost her crew. I am just a warrior who pulled an enemy from the void because I could not bear to see such fire extinguish.
Kothix's antennae drooped.
Neither of us chose this. But perhaps that is why the Queen's plan has merit. Choice brought us only war. Necessity might bring something else.
Elena looked at the alien who had saved and doomed her in the same act. Tried to imagine 90 days of this strange balance between captor and companion, enemy and potential ally. Failed completely. But she thought of her crew, of the way Lieutenant Chen had pushed her toward the escape pod even as the hull breached. Of Engineer Okonkwo, who had kept life support running until his station exploded. Of Dr. Yuki, who had sealed herself in medbay to save her patients. They had died so she could live. What did she owe that sacrifice?
90 days,
she said finally.
I'll try. Actually try, not just fake it. But I need something from you. Name it. Tell me about them. The Exathrin who died when my ship fought yours. I need to know they were real, not just targets. If we're going to do this, if we're going to try to bridge this fucking impossible gap, I need to start by acknowledging the costs on both sides.
Kothix's antennae rose slowly. A gesture Elena's training set indicated surprise and respect.
Very well. There was Pilot Kirix of my squadron. She had just bonded with her chosen mate 3 rotations before the battle. When her fighter was struck, she transmitted vector data to help others evade similar fire. She died ensuring her wingmates survived.
Elena closed her eyes, seeing Lieutenant Chen's face.
We had someone like that too. Navigator Singh. He stayed at his post plotting escape routes while the bridge collapsed around him. Medical officer the Lin treated wounded during the engagement, working even as our ship took damage. Debris crushed her station. She saved 6 crew members before her own injuries became fatal. Dr. Yuki.
Elena's voice cracked.
She was going to get married next month. Her fiancé was on a supply station at Jupiter. Someone has to tell him she died saving her patients.
They spoke late into the ship's cycle, trading names and stories, building a memorial from words alone.
The pheromone pool between them shifted colors, responding to chemical signals neither fully understood. And when exhaustion finally claimed Elena, she found herself curled on the platform that was not designed for human sleep, but somehow felt less hostile than before. Kothix watched her with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's bioluminescence, and wondered if the Queen's mad gambit might somehow work, or if he had doomed them both to intimate failure in the name of impossible peace. The next cycle began with alarms that jerked Elena from nightmares of explosive decompression. Kothix was already moving, his body shifting from rest to combat readiness with frightening speed. The chamber's walls flickered with urgent patterns.
What's happening?
Elena was on her feet, instinctively checking for weapons she didn't have.
Security breach. Sector 9.
Kothix moved toward the door, then paused, mandibles working in clear indecision.
You are not restrained. The Queen's protocols state bonding pairs remain together during emergencies, but you don't know if you can trust me.
Elena crossed her arms.
Smart. I'm the enemy, remember?
Maybe I sabotaged something. Sector 9 houses human prisoners. The breach originated from inside their containment.
Kothix's antennae flattened.
Your people are attempting escape.
Elena's heart hammered. Escape. Her crew's training, her instincts, everything screamed to help them. But Kothix watched her with those impossible eyes, and she remembered 90 days, remembered names of the dead shared in darkness, remembered that 317 prisoners would pay the price if this went wrong.
Take me with you,
she said.
I can help negotiate. They'll listen to a ranking officer. Or you will assist their escape and doom this entire initiative. Maybe, or maybe I'm the only chance you have to end this without more deaths.
She met his gaze steadily.
You pulled me from the wreckage because you saw something worth saving. Trust that instinct now.
Kothix's stillness stretched between them like a drawn blade. Then he moved to the wall panel and retrieved something that looked like a collar, but hummed with energy that raised Elena's arm hair.
This is a compliance device. It will not harm you unless you attempt violence or escape. It will track your location and can induce unconsciousness remotely.
He held it out.
Wear this, and I can justify bringing you. Refuse, and I must leave you secured.
Elena took the collar, feeling its weight, the surrender it represented. Every cell in her body screamed to throw it aside, to fight, to never accept this leash. But she thought of Dr. Yuki, of Navigator Singh, of all those who had died so she could make impossible choices. She snapped the collar around her own throat. Kothix's antennae trembled.
You continue to surprise me, human.
Come.
We run.
The corridors were chaos. Exathrin warriors moved in precise formations, while alarms painted everything in red urgency. Kothix led Elena through passages she hadn't seen, past chambers where ship functions pulsed in biological-mechanical fusion. Other Exathrins saw her, saw the collar, saw Kothix's markings, and let them pass with clicking comments the translator couldn't quite catch. They reached Sector 9 to find a standoff. Human prisoners had somehow breached their cocoons and seized a control junction.
23 men and women, still wearing tattered uniforms, armed with improvised weapons and desperate determination, faced 40 Exathrin warriors in full combat array. And, at the front of the human group, bloodied but unbowed, stood Commander Richard Torres of the Terran Valor, Elena's executive officer. A man she'd served with for 3 years. A man she'd watched get pulled from the bridge wreckage by enemy forces.
Torres!
Her voice cut through the tense silence. His head snapped toward her, and the relief that blazed across his face died when he saw Kothix, saw the collar, saw the way she stood unrestrained beside the enemy warrior.
Captain Rivas.
His voice was ice.
Good to see you alive. Are you here to join the breakout, or have you switched sides already?
The accusation hit like a physical blow. Elena forced herself to straighten, to let her command voice carry.
Stand down, Commander. This isn't a winnable situation. With respect, Captain, fuck that.
Torres's hand tightened on a piece of sharpened hull plating.
They're holding us prisoner. Doing something to us, something sick. Others are talking about forced breeding programs, genetic experiments.
I'd rather die fighting than let them. It's not breeding.
Elena stepped forward, and Kothix moved with her, a presence at her shoulder.
It's worse. It's arranged marriages.
The silence that followed was absolute. Then someone laughed, high and hysterical. Torres's expression shifted from rage to confusion to something that might have been horrified understanding.
You're joking. I'm not. The Exathran Queen has decreed that human prisoners will be paired with Exathran warriors. Forced cultural bonding to prevent future conflict. It's insane, it's non-consensual, and it's happening.
Elena gestured to Kothix.
I've been assigned to Warrior Prime Kothix. We have 90 days to demonstrate compatibility or face reassignment. Jesus fucking Christ.
Torres lowered his makeshift weapon slightly.
That's their solution? Shotgun weddings with giant space bugs?
Kothix's mandibles clicked sharply.
We are not insects. The Exathran are arthropod analogs xenobiology with separate evolutionary origin. Also, your species' marriage customs are not dissimilar to what we propose. Strategic alliances through bonding are well documented in human history. Yeah, and we decided that was fucked up a few centuries ago.
Torres looked around at his fellow prisoners, at the Exathran warriors, at Elena's collar.
This is really happening? This isn't some weird interrogation technique? It's really happening.
Elena's voice softened.
And if you fight, if you try to escape, you'll die. All of you. And the Queen will use your failure to justify harsher measures on the remaining prisoners. But if we cooperate, if some of us can make this work, we might actually end the war. By sleeping with the enemy? By playing house with the things that killed our crews?
A young ensign stepped forward, her face twisted with rage and grief.
They murdered my husband. He was on the engineering deck when it took that direct hit. I held his hand while he died in vacuum. And you want me to what? Date his killer?
Elena had no answer for that. No words adequate to the horror of what was being asked. She looked to Kothix, saw him watching the ensign with something that might have been regret.
I cannot change what was done in war,
Kothix said quietly. I cannot return your dead. But I can tell you that every Exathran warrior in this corridor has also lost comrades, also fought and bled and mourned. The Queen offers this path because she believes the alternative is extinction for one or both our species. The architects approach from Galactic North. They consume all they encounter. The Queen strategists believe humans and Exathran together might survive what is coming. Divided, we die separately.
Torres's eyes narrowed.
The architects? What the hell are you talking about? A threat your species has not yet encountered. The reason Exathran expansion pushed into your territory in the first place.
Kothix's antennae flattened completely.
You call this war unprovoked. We call it desperate search for allies who might help us survive what is coming. Our methods were poor. The Queen acknowledges this. But time is limited.
Elena filed that information away, mind racing. New variables. New stakes. If Kothix was telling the truth, this wasn't just about ending human Exathran conflict. It was about survival against something worse.
Commander Torres,
she said formally,
I'm ordering you and all personnel here to stand down and cooperate with the bonding initiative. Consider it a deep cover operation. We gather intelligence, we assess Exathran capabilities, we learn what we can about these architects, and we survive to fight another day if this proves to be a trap.
Torres studied her for a long moment. Then nodded slowly.
Aye, Captain. I still think this is the worst idea in human history, but you're the ranking officer.
He looked at his fellow prisoners.
You heard the captain. Stand down. Let's go meet our alien dates, and try not to throw up.
The Exathrin warriors lowered their weapons, and the humans did the same. The standoff dissolved into awkward shuffling as prisoners were led back to processing, and Elena felt the tension drain from her shoulders. Until Kothix leaned close and spoke so only she could hear.
You ordered them to gather intelligence, to maintain loyalty to human interests while pretending cooperation. The Queen will have monitored this exchange.
Elena's blood went cold.
Then we're fucked. Perhaps.
Or perhaps the Queen will recognize pragmatic leadership and respect for warrior traditions.
Kothix's mandibles moved in what she was learning might be a smile.
You protected your people while moving them toward compliance. This is what the Queen hoped for, leaders who can navigate impossible situations. But she will test you now. Both of us.
They returned to the bonding chamber in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over them. The pheromone pool's colors had shifted to something darker, more complex. Elena collapsed onto her platform, suddenly exhausted beyond measure.
What did you mean about the architects?
She asked.
Is that real, or a lie to make us cooperate?
It is real. Kothix settled across from her.
The architects appear without warning in conquered systems. They consume planets, stars, everything. They leave nothing but empty space and debris. Exathrin Long Watch posts detected them 3 cycles ago. Current projections suggest they will reach Exathrin core territory in 12 cycles. 18 until they reach Sol system. Jesus.
Elena rubbed her face. And you think Human Exathrin Alliance can stop them? I think humans have a history of surviving impossible situations through innovation and refusal to accept defeat. I think Exathrin have technology and strategic thinking your species lacks. I think together we have a small chance. Divided, we have none.
He paused.
And I think the Queen gambles everything on forcing us to see each other as individuals rather than species. She believes bonds between persons can bridge gaps between peoples. That's a hell of a gamble. Yes.
They sat in silence as the chamber's bioluminescence slowly dimmed toward rest cycle. Elena touched the collar at her throat, feeling its hum against her skin, thinking about Torres's accusation of switching sides, about the ensign's murdered husband, about all the impossible choices that lay ahead.
Kothix? Yes. Thank you for backing me up with Torres. You could have let them die fighting. Would have been cleaner for you.
His antennae twitched.
I pulled you from the wreckage because I could not let such fire extinguish. It would be pointless to save you only to let you watch your people die unnecessarily. Besides, he hesitated in a way that seemed profoundly unlike a warrior of his experience.
I find I do not wish you to hate me more than you already must.
Elena looked at this alien who had destroyed her ship and saved her life, who spoke of mutual survival and impossible futures, who asked her consent before treating wounds and worried about her opinion of him. Tomorrow she would start gathering intelligence, maintaining loyalty to her species, preparing for whatever came next. But tonight, in this chamber that smelled of cinnamon and ammonia, she felt something shift in how she saw the figure across from her. Not human. Not friend. Not yet. But perhaps not quite enemy anymore either.
I don't hate you,
she said quietly.
I don't know what I feel. But it's not hate.
Kothix's antennae rose slowly, and the pattern of his mandible movement suggested something that might have been relief, or hope, or something the translator had no word for.
They settled into rest cycle, the pheromone pool between them shifting to colors that spoke of beginnings, fragile and uncertain, and the Queen watched from her distant throne room, and calculated probabilities of survival, and prayed to God the Exathrin no longer believed in that her gamble would not doom them all. In 90 days, they would know if bonds forged in necessity could become something more. In 12 cycles, the architects would arrive, and all of this would mean either everything or nothing at all.